Alright, welcome back to Absurd Automotive. Today we're going to be building a mini chopper on a budget. So obviously I have all these big crazy projects going on all the time, and I've spent a lot of money on those trucks and cars and all the big stuff that I do. So I figured it's time to actually save some money and do something on a budget. So I spent about 250 bucks on 3 boxes from Amazon, and I'm hopeful with all the spare stuff I've got laying around, like the steel plates and the paint, that I can build myself a mini chopper on a budget. Alright, so when I got this stuff, I already checked it, but I'm just going to go over it with you guys what this stuff is and why I'm buying it, really. I don't know. So, obviously I don't have clutches laying around, so we bought a clutch kit and a chain for the motor and everything that we should be able to use. Not super important or crazy. I bought a throttle kit, like the throttle and the whole attachment and everything set for this. So we might have to adjust the throttle on the motor a little bit to fit this up. But I'm hopeful that these will work really well. And there's a kill switch I can put on the handlebars so I'm not reaching down to kill the motor if something does end up happening. So, got ourselves a nice little throttle kit and new handlebars and everything. And obviously the main course here is our motor. So, this is, Ace Up Energy motor. They were the only ones that were shipping to Alaska. Like, nobody would ship me motors up here. I was trying everybody. I was calling people back in the lower 48 to see if they could ship me motors, but it was costing too much. This was the only one where the price of shipping was reasonable and the ones that would just actually ship it to me. So, oh goodness. Ooh, we have this beautiful 212cc motor. It has all the right parts and sizes, everything I need. I don't think there's anything super crazy with this. Only thing I don't like about it is it's bright yellow. It's really the only thing I'm kind of like, that's a little too yellow for me. So obviously we have a bunch of paint laying around from other projects. If this works for us and it goes well, we'll tear everything back apart and we'll paint it. So yeah, this thing's pretty good. It didn't come with oil and it didn't come with fuel, obviously. So we're gonna be putting fuel in there and oil, but I first want to make sure this fits up to the bike the way I want it to, or we have to modify the bike to fit it up. We have to do, not math, because this is not, I'm not going to make it that nice. We're just going to start welding stuff together. But no, I mean, for the price I paid for it, it's really, really nice. I think I paid like 158 bucks for this motor, and I think shipping was like 50 bucks. For up in Alaska, that's relatively reasonable. And then for our throttle cable and our clutch kit, it was about another 50 bucks for all that. So for everything that I needed right now, we're at 250 bucks if you don't count oil or fuel, which, I mean, that's easy stuff. So I'm trying to keep it in the $300 ballpark, right? I want to make this a budget build because I think a mini bike should be costing around 300, like 400 bucks. So that's what I'm going to try and make this. I'm going to do it a little fancier too because I've got a lot of leftover stuff. Like I have headliner left over from the truck, so I'm probably going to redo the seat with the headliner I have. I've got a lot of paint left over and a lot of tape left over from other jobs. So I'm going to try and make this as nice as possible, but I'm going to try and do it with material I already have, and I'm going to try not to buy a bunch of material to do this project. We're going to get into this and start tearing this thing apart so I can see what I need to cut out to fit this motor in this frame. Alright, so now we're just going to be tearing down the bike. We're going to be tearing off the chain guard, the sprockets, we're going to change all this other stuff. Just get all this crap out of the way. We're going to get our seat out of here. We're going to cut off the brackets and stuff we don't need and kind of see what we can do without significantly modifying the frame. I think this has to come out, but I don't know if we're going to have to cut this or what we're going to have to do exactly here. But right now we're just going to strip it. I'm going to strip it of everything I don't need. We're going to pull the seat off, the handlebars, everything that we don't really need right now, and we're going to start planning and figuring out how we're going to fit this motor in the bike. Alright, so we got the bike stripped down, the handlebars are off, not handlebars, but the grips are off, everything's off that I need off the bike. Now I have to modify the subframe here because apparently that motor is significantly too big to fit this motor on there. Or I have to modify the exhaust and modify the fuel tank to be able to fit it in this. So I'm going to probably just take the fuel tank off, take the exhaust off, see if it does fit inside the frame. And if it doesn't, then we'll adjust it from there. But I've got a bunch of sheet metal for the base of that thing sitting over here. So I'll probably pull out all this steel sheet metal. It's pretty thick. I don't know how thick it is, but it's thick enough where I can cut out that bottom and start, you know, building my own little frame on the bottom there. I just don't know how I'm gonna do it yet. I'm really thinking it through, but I'm just taking all the top pieces off the motor, seeing if the motor fits in there, and then just kind of going from there on what I want to do. All right, so I took the motor apart and tried to fit it in there. It's not even possible unless I like really take off the tank, air filter, and exhaust, and I make a completely different setup. I think we're gonna have to go with just removing the entire bottom half of my bike and rebuilding it. Basically, I have to remove the bottom part of the bike. I gotta remove this bar right here, build it a little bit lower to fit the motor in here so I don't have to modify the motor too heavily. So we're gonna be cutting all this steel using whatever. This is some old stuff off my safe. That's just some random steel we've had laying around. So I'm going to cut it out. I'm gonna brace right here so that way like this doesn't fold or anything. And then I'll build my nice little platform for the motor to sit in here. We're starting to come together here. All right, so one of the big issues we're running into is obviously this bottom bracket that we need to put on for the motor. I'm just gonna put the back tire on right now. That way I can kind of gauge where this motor needs to go, and I can start measuring and building my bracket and everything for the bottom of that bike. But yeah, it's a lot lower than I'd like it to be. But as long as I'm not scraping on the ground, then it really doesn't matter. All right, with that back tire, and there's a lot more ground clearance than I thought there was gonna be. So now we're just going to modify the backside right here. That way we put a brace so this doesn't fold on me. And then we're gonna put our plate to hold up the motor and put it where I wanna put it so I can line the chain up nicely. And then hopefully we'll start putting this thing back together. So first order of business with the bike. We are gonna have to build a plate that comes down and then back up. I can do that pretty easy, but I'm scared it's gonna snap or something's gonna break. So I'm gonna build another brace right here on the backside to make sure this doesn't fold or crack or break or anything crazy like that. And I think that's all we're really gonna do. I think we're just gonna build our little platelet down here, put our brace in here, and I think that's all we're gonna need other than fixing up our sprocket and putting the chain on. Cut that plate out. I haven't welded anything in yet. I'm gonna cut everything and get it kind of ready, and then I'll weld all at the same time. But that plate will protect the brakes from any of the heat coming off the exhaust, and it'll protect the tire from throwing mud up at the engine. So now I just gotta do my bottom bracket, and then that'll be all. So I have an issue here. I have this really heavy steel plate. Super, super thick though. It makes it really heavy. So I have all this other kind of smaller stuff to make it work for that. And my idea here is to basically just make one long piece of steel, and I'm basically just gonna come down, I'll bend it, I'll bring it over to where the base ends, and then I'll bend it back up to here. That way it looks clean, it's not super, super crazy in the way of anything, and it's nice and flat. The problem I'm seeing if I use that big piece of steel, one, it's warped, two, it's super, super heavy, and it's gonna be a problem. It's gonna wreck all of my gear trying to cut it and trying to drill through it to make the mounting holes. So I'm not sure what I wanna do right now. All right, so the plates are all done. I think this is what I'm gonna go with. It seems pretty thick, hard enough where it's gonna be holding up that motor okay. I might put a little bit of extra bracing on where the bends are and stuff like that. But I'm gonna plate off the back of the bike here, and then I'm gonna start bending my plate where the motor is. And yeah, I think this is gonna look super good too and be super nice because this is just big enough where I can drill the holes and bolt this directly to the motor without having to do like any extra bracing. So it's still gonna look super sleek and kind of nice, I hope. All right, so here's our cradle and kind of our finished setup for the frame. So all I'm gonna do is take this giant cradle I just made. I'm gonna weld it on there. I'm gonna mark the bolt holes, drill the bolt holes for the motor. I'm gonna bolt the motor right up there. And when I bolt it up there, I'm gonna weld it to the front of this. I'm gonna put in a bracket on each one of these little divots. I'm gonna weld where I cut it to bend it, and then I'm gonna weld it to the frame here. I'm gonna weld it to the plate back here. So that way, the frame should be super sturdy and somewhat still light, and hopefully that doesn't break on me. I'm gonna make some good welds, and I'm gonna brace everything a little bit. And that way I can change out the motor relatively easy to a smaller or bigger, or if this one breaks, I can get another one. I just want to make this thing easy to work on. Also, I want it to be sturdy where it's not just going to be breaking if I go over some bumps or anything like that. So I'm going to get this welded up, and then we're going to work on getting the motor bolted up to the frame. And also too, right now, I'm not really sure how I'm going to put this brace back on there because we are lowering the bike quite a bit. So I'm going to have to cut it off the old beam and probably just weld it to the bottom of this. So I'm going to have to make it even stronger to be able to handle the kickstand as well. I'm not really sure how we're going to set that one up. I might even just make a bracket out here and then weld this part like way up here. That way it's, you know, it can come out away from the plate itself and it's a completely separate thing. But I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do with that one exactly. So right now I'm just going to get the bike, at least with the motor in there, see kind of where everything stands, and then I'll worry about getting the kickstand back on it. Motor's sitting in that cradle really well. So all we're going to do now is just line up the holes. We're going to drill our holes for all our bolts and everything. We're kind of just finishing up the motor mounting and everything, kind of figuring out how far we want it forward. Then we're going to figure out the peg situation, and I'm also trying to figure out the the kickstand for the bike. So I'm still figuring some things out. I had to take the exhaust off to make it fit the way I want it to fit, but the cool thing is I think I'm going to be able to modify the exhaust myself where it's pointing down or just away from the seat and all the other stuff. So I'm going to have to modify the exhaust, or maybe get an aftermarket one that like comes down the side of the bike and makes it look more like a chopper, but I don't know. We're going to figure that one out. Right now, we're going to probably just finish welding up and bracing my cradle for the motor, and then we're probably going to move on to making sure that the chain will fit up the way I want it to, and get the sprocket all fixed, maybe get my pegs on there. And I think that's looking really good. It just fits well. And if you see here in the bike, my engine is set over quite a bit so that this will line up with the chain really well. So with that, it's super convenient that is the way it worked, because all I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this just one bolt hole. That way the puller's back here. So when you're sitting on the bike, you can pull it here and you're not way up here. Other than that, I mean, this is really coming along. Here, I'll pull the motor off so you guys can see the cradle part. Well, bike's down. All right, so here's the cradle. That's the design I decided to go with. We got our plate back here holding these two together, our plate down here. I'm gonna put a plate right here because I want this to be a little more sturdy. So I'm gonna put a plate up in here, and I'm thinking, because this is only held on by one little section, I'm probably gonna put some sort of plate or another, just something else there to help that and make sure, like maybe a facing plate, like I'll weld it up here and down here and kind of overlap that to make sure that it doesn't fall off or hit anything, or I don't know, we'll figure that out. It's gonna be a later thing, but that cradle looks really good, and the bike looks pretty darn good. Especially when the motor's sitting in the bike, it just looks super badass. The bike is gonna be delayed, but we're pretty much done with the cradle. We have the front brace on there, we have our entire kickstand setup on there, and I have our brace back here for the rear as well. So that cradle turned out really well. The engine sits in there really well. The only problem that I have right now that's stopping me is the rear sprocket problem. So I just ordered a sprocket and a chain tensioner and all other stuff. So that was another like 50 bucks. So we're at $300 right now for the mini chopper on a budget. The engine sits in that cradle really well. I can still get to everything. I can still maintain the bike even when it's all together like this. The only problem is the exhaust. So if I put the exhaust on like it's supposed to be, it hits the bike. And I'm not cutting the bike. So all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut the bottom of the exhaust and I'm gonna flip it. I'm gonna bolt it on just like this, except I'm gonna have the exhaust facing the rear so it's not burning my legs. And I'm gonna try and angle it as much as I can back and get it further back on the bike. And hopefully it doesn't interfere with the chain. It doesn't look like it will. I think I might even wait until I get the chain on and then modify the exhaust. So yeah, I think I'm gonna wait for the sprocket to come back to really do anything. So this is gonna be waiting for a few days until that sprocket gets here. And then we'll continue on. But this looks really good so far. I mean, just look at that thing. It just looks so good. This is way better than any mini bike you could buy at a store. All right, so a few days ago, we hit a stop with the bike and we needed to order a sprocket. The sprocket should be here within like 2 or 3 days. So I don't really like the color scheme of the bike. The yellow engine is not really the vibe. So we're gonna strip everything. I think we're gonna bolt the motor down today and we're gonna set the seat up and try and get everything kind of ready for when that sprocket gets here. And then we'll put the sprocket on and hopefully we'll be able to drive this thing. All right, so to get the bike ready, all we're gonna do is we're gonna strip off all of the stickers. We're gonna make sure the motor works. We're gonna bolt the motor to the bike. We're gonna finish up all of our welds, make them look nice and pretty. And we're gonna adjust the seat so it fits on the bike now. All right, we just took off all the stickers on the bike. We have everything stripped down. You can still see where the stickers were sitting, but we're gonna wire wheel this entire thing, get it ready for a nice clean paint job. And right now, the paint scheme is gonna look like a complete gray covered bike with a black motor and a black cradle, and then we're gonna add a bunch of red accents, and we're gonna add some stickers too. So hopefully this thing will look pretty good when we're done with it. All right, there we go. Bike's completely stripped down, just the frame. I didn't take off the forks. There's really no reason to. This was supposed to be a budget build, and I'm already gone further than I really like to. So we're gonna drill the holes in the frame right now for the engine to be mounted up to the cradle. And then I think we're gonna try and do the pegs. I'm not really sure, but I wanna do the seat along with the pegs and kind of figure out where I'm gonna fit on this thing. All right, so we're mocking up the bike right now. We have the seat kind of placed where I want it. I'm gonna obviously cut it and fix it and modify it a little bit and wrap it and everything. Right now, the pedals is what I'm really concerned about and how I'm gonna do that. So obviously my leg is gonna be sitting right about here. Here's where my giant chain thing is gonna be. So this looks terrible. I don't like the look of it. It looks awful. It just doesn't look that good with the bike. So I'm thinking I cut the peg off, like bend it out or something and just have a nice peg right there. But then this right here obviously is spinning at Mach Jesus, so I don't want it tearing my leg off. So I might just do something like up here, like kind of angle it or something. Maybe that'll be a little safer, but I'm also trying to make it so like it's comfortable too. All right, so as you see, our beautiful mounting points here for our motor. Now we have to deal with the seat. So I think we're gonna leave the seat right where it is. It's not really that great, but I don't see what I'd really do with it. I'm gonna try to reupholster it and make it a little more comfortable for myself. Maybe, I don't really know how I'm gonna do that, but we're going to cut out this giant bar here, and I think we're gonna use these as our foot pegs, possibly. So we're gonna cut it way up here, weld it into the frame so it doesn't come out, and then we'll try and cut this in half. I don't know, I'll probably measure it out, see if it's enough to do pegs on this. If not, then I'm gonna have to do the pedals as pegs. So we'll figure it out, but we're gonna try that right now. And then, yeah, we're probably gonna get this thing ready for some paint. All right, so here's the bottom of that seat, and it just barely clears the air box for that, but I'm worried that this will not be enough room for my foot, so we're going to chop it, tack it up, and see if it's enough room. And we'll fully weld it on, and hopefully we'll start painting here in a second. Alright, bike's coming along really well. I got those pegs mounted up. I am definitely going to have to put some sort of chain guard on that thing so I don't lose a leg. But it should work pretty well and still looks somewhat good, I think. I hope. I don't really know. We're gonna find out. But right now, we're going to now just make everything look pretty. So we're going to tear apart the seat, we're going to reupholster it, and we're going to prep the bike for paint. All right, there we go. The frame of the bike is all ready for paint. We're just gonna do this smoky gray as our base because we have a few of them. We've got, I think, 2 or 3 of them. Smoky gray, so hopefully this will look pretty good. And then I will do all of the accents as we go. So this is what the bike's gonna look like for probably a few days, but we're gonna reupholster the seat as well with all of that extra really nice like fake leather we got up there. And this thing should turn out pretty good. That's not the best in the world. There's definitely some flaws with both of the paint job and this terrible upholstery job. But this is like the 3rd or 4th time I've done upholstery, so I feel like I'm getting better at it. It's pretty good for the most part. Won't come off or anything. And it should match this pretty nice once I have everything back together and it looks nice. I know this looks like primer almost, and it just doesn't really look that good. I might go with something different. I don't really have a lot of colors though, and I definitely want to keep this on a budget. So all I really got is red, yellow. I have my, I could be really cliche and match my truck. This is the same color as my truck. So if I really wanted to, I could go, this is like my backup, just go full red with it. But I don't know, I got white, black, gray, red, yellow. I mean, I could really do any of those. It only took me about half a rattle can to do that thing. So yeah, I don't know. And then once I get the motor in there, that'll be black, and then I'll have a bunch of I'll have an accent line of red everywhere, and I don't know. Might look good, might not. But we're gonna try it. We're gonna try it, and if I have to take it back apart to paint it again, then so be it. All right, so well, we got the bike completely taped off and everything for adding our decals. We're gonna paint the motor black right now, and I'm gonna be painting up my plates so that way I get like a good 60s motorcycle racing vibe to it. I have always wanted like a 60s panhead, like an old rustic 60s panhead, and this is kind of the vibe I'm going for right now. With a little, and it's not gonna be rusty, but you know, a little nicer version of that. And so far it's turning out really good. I really like it. I finished the seat last night and everything. So we have this beautiful seat all wrapped up and everything, and we have the bike completely gray, and I'm gonna do some lines on there. I'm gonna paint the motor all black. I'm gonna add the stripes and the tires and the plates, and just I'm very hopeful this will all come together and look really, really nice when I'm done with it. The only thing I'm really, really worried about right now is the lines and how they're gonna look, because it's basically gonna make or break the bike. Obviously this thing looks trashy right now because it looks like it's just primer. So I'm hopeful once I get the lines on there and I put everything else back on the bike, it'll look really, really good. All right, there we go. All of our plates and our motor is painted. We have our stripes started. They don't look that great. They look terrible, actually. Definitely could have done better on that one. So I might have to strip it and start again on those. But other than that, this thing looks pretty decent so far. Very excited to see how this turns out. I mean, it just looks like a pile of rags and trash right now. But soon you will see an absolute masterpiece come together. Well, the signs for the bike turned out really good. I mean, the 5's a little messed up, but that's pretty darn good for just that. And motor turned out okay, it looks like. It's not perfect, but the bike is toasted. That's awful. It's just god awful. So I'm probably gonna pull the tape off, look at it, see how bad it is from afar, because this thing doesn't need to look great. I just want it to look good from about 5 feet, and I can tell from even here that looks god awful. So we're probably gonna pull the tape off and just see how bad it is, and then we'll probably try and repaint the entire bike. You know, 5 feet back, that looks pretty good. But as soon as you get close, it looks horrific. You can tell I'm missing chunks of the black paint on the sides and everything. It just looks bad. Like, I don't know why, like this red line in black turned out just fine on here, but for some reason on the bike, it like did not turn out good at all. So that's where we're gonna go with that, because that looks pretty good from 5 feet back and I like it. The nameplates and everything should hide a lot of that bad paint work. But yeah, we're gonna slap the motor in, we're gonna put some tires on it. I'm probably gonna try and mount those plates down here, just getting the bike kind of looking, oh, the seat too. I'm gonna throw the seat on it to kind of see what this bike is gonna look like all done. Look at this mini bike. This is this is amazing, dude. I can't believe it turned out this well with just a bunch of spare stuff I had laying around and $300 off of Amazon. Now, I don't have it working just yet. Obviously, I got to put the sprocket on and some other stuff over here. I got to put the clutch, the sprocket, and the exhaust all up. But other than that, this thing is just about ready to go. I got to officially mount everything, which I'm going to do right now. But that is jaw-dropping good from what it was to this. It's just a little bit of vision, and honestly, I really think the vintage look that I was going for with the 52 and the paint scheme really brought it all together and just makes it look so good. I'm really excited to drive this thing around. I wonder what I look like sitting on this thing. All right, so the mini chopper mini bike thing is just about done. We got the sprocket in today, so we're gonna modify up the chain, the throttle cable, and anything else we're missing, and we're gonna get this thing ready to rock and roll today. All right, so the bike is apart. We have the wheels set here. I gotta weld up my sprocket to there. The motor, all I gotta do is the exhaust. Once I get it on there, we gotta tack up the seat. We gotta weld on our little spot for our chain tensioner and everything, and then just hook everything up. I think I gotta hook up the throttle, and that's really the last thing I gotta do. That might take me a little bit of time just because I gotta finesse it and figure out it and everything, but this is just about done. Once we get everything in there, we'll bolt the motor down, we'll set the chain up right, we'll get everything tensioned correctly, we'll shorten the chain a little bit so it fits, and then this thing's gonna be hopefully driving out of this garage. All right, so the sprocket is on the bicycle wheel now. Nice and welded up. It's not perfect, but it'll hold our chain on there. We're not gonna be going 90 miles an hour, so it's not really gonna matter that much, but it holds, and that's good. The seat's welded on, and now we just gotta make our little bracket for the tensioner over there, and then that'll be pretty much it, and it's on to assembly at that point. Here we go. Our chain tensioner is on. It's got plenty of space to move and lots of adjustment, you know, for different types of sprockets back here or different whatever. And yeah, that's pretty nice. Once I tighten it up, I'm gonna start probably at the lowest setting so it clears the brakes and clears the lines and everything. And then we'll, obviously when it gets loose, because there's a lot of parts that aren't perfect, we'll tighten it up. Because I mean, you guys saw I welded this onto the back of the tire. Clearly that's not perfect and probably warped. So it's gonna beat the chain really, really bad. And I'm gonna try and keep the chain relatively somewhat tight. That way it can move around. The tensioner's on there and sprocket's all good. We're gonna rebuild our ball bearings. We're going to clean out all the old junk inside of there. We're gonna put some more grease, new grease in there, and we'll re-grease all of our balls and we'll put them all back together. Hopefully this will last us a little bit, give it a little more life. So I'm hopeful that that grease will help it for at least a little bit. I know with how I'm gonna beat this thing, it's not gonna last super long, but I hope it lasts a little bit. So this chain is way too close. I mean, it would probably be fine, but it's gonna bounce off that metal quite a bit. So I took this random lid here, and cut a little piece out, and we made a little chain guard that we're gonna toss on there. That way it's not eating the chain so bad and it's not eating my frame. We're just gonna tape it on there because I'm not sure what I wanna do officially yet, but for right now, just to protect the chain, we're gonna toss it on there just so it's not wrecking my chain. So our crappy protector is on there. I'll find a permanent solution for that eventually. But onto the exhaust. Clearly, that's not gonna work there. Maybe it will. Oh wow, look at that! But it still touches the seat. It's got some issues there. So I could buy a custom exhaust, which might happen eventually, which looks super cool coming down here. But I don't feel like doing that just right now because we're on a budget build. So we're going to cut and just basically angle it out so it sits like way out here and doesn't hit anything important, versus if it's that way up here, it burns my seat, it could burn me. Angle it out, seems like it's out of the way, still looks kind of cool. So hopefully, probably right there. That's probably where I'll angle it out too. But yeah, that's what it's gonna look like. Nice clear path, it's not hitting anything important. That brake right there is all it's hitting, and that should be fine. All we got left is hooking up the kill switch. Should be a plug and play, nice and easy. And then we just gotta wire a hook, or not wire, but solder a hook to the back of this thing. So that way I can hook it up to my throttle and should vroom vroom. But yeah, the bike's pretty much done. I'm surprised it looks that good. Oh, we gotta do the plates too. I gotta put the plates on. Forgot about that. But we're gonna hook up the throttle in that first, make sure it moves under its own power before I make it look pretty. All right, throttle is hooked up. I'm kind of scared to run this thing, honestly. So there is our throttle cable all hooked up. You can't really see it, but you got our throttle cable hooked up in there. My battery's dead on that. You can see it in there, but we'll see if it works. I have no idea. I have not even tried to run this yet. I'm gonna set the camera up and hopefully not take off out the door. All right, before we make her all pretty and put on all those plates and stuff I got for her, I want to make sure my electrical's working and make sure this thing actually still runs after all the stuff I've done to it. So here we go. This is the first time I'm doing this, and we'll see if she starts. I'm kind of scared right now. I got some figuring out to do why the throttle isn't working. But other than that, she runs, she works, kinda. I think I gotta flip the throttle around because I think the throttle's pulling the wrong direction. So I'm gonna try and flip the throttle around, come underneath this or something, and try and pull it the other way. That way it goes the direction it needs to go. So maybe that'll work. I don't know, we'll see. I think that was the only issue though, but it runs and kind of sort of works. The clutch was engaging when I was turning it up and everything. I did the throttle wrong. So I'm gonna fix the throttle and we'll try again. Okay, take whatever this is. I don't even remember what we're on right now. I don't think the kill switch works, so that's an issue. We're just gonna have to make sure we can get to the fuel, shut off, and we should be good to go, theoretically. Well, the kill switch still doesn't work. I don't know what's going on, but the throttle works now, so that's good. We're gonna test it out, make sure everything functions properly, and maybe take it for a little rip once I get the kill switch to work, because I'm not riding this without a kill switch. But it functions. I don't know how well yet. I don't know if it's really that good. We're gonna have to kind of figure that one out. But yeah, nothing flew off. The wheel was spinning. Super solid still, nothing like snapped or broke or anything, so woohoo! Even though she's done, it's dark outside and it's like midnight right now, so I really don't want to make my neighbors upset. I've already gotten a couple notices, so we're gonna leave this till tomorrow. I'm gonna take it out tomorrow and we're gonna have lots of fun. I'm very, very excited to take this thing out. It's all done. The kill switch works now. The chain all works, throttle works, all the plates are on. Everything looks so good. I'm super excited to go ride this thing tomorrow. And I can get my helmet and all my other stuff. I'm not just gonna go rip it down the road and possibly hurt myself. I haven't ridden in quite a while. All right, it is a beautiful Alaskan morning. It is currently like 40 degrees out, so it's a little chilly. But the Absurd Cycle, it's a new name for it. I figured out a name for it. The Absurd Cycle is all done. We have the chain on, the throttle is all good. No promises it's perfect, but it's pretty good. We have the brakes on, the kill switch works. Everything's pretty good. So we're gonna get this thing moving. Hopefully not hurt ourselves. It's been a long time since I've been on a bike. At least a motorized one. So we're just gonna bob around here in the back real quick, just to test everything out, and if I do dump it or something happens, at least it's a soft fall, you know? So we're gonna mess around with it, get her going, and then, yeah, hopefully make a good video out of this. So something's not working right. I don't know what it is. It just seems like the engine has no power. I think it's the throttle cable just being messed up or something. This motor really wasn't built for being a go-kart motor, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on. But it seems like the clutch isn't really working either. I have it on probably the wrong way, but I needed to put it on backwards due to the chain being way out there. So I don't know what is going on exactly, but it seems like it'll work if I just keep tinkering with it. Okay, so we fixed all of our issues, I think, I hope. All we did was we reconstructed the throttle. I put this giant spring on there, and we put our throttle piece through here, attaching to the backside here instead of way over and all that mess over there. So I'm hopeful this will work. I'm gonna solder everything together right now just so it stays put, but I'm hopeful that solves my issues. And then I got it to work, and I did pop the chain. That was kind of expected, but I might have to change up the chain setup so that way it stays on. But we're gonna see if it moves first with the throttle, because it moves with the engine and it's fine. It's just the throttle was the issue. So I'm gonna fix the throttle right now and see what happens. It's all soldered together. We're gonna kind of see how this works here. I'm gonna let that cool off just a little more. I'm gonna see how it works. Not the best in the world, but it's better than what I had. Make sure it stays all the way forward. Perfect, it works pretty good. So we're gonna start her up. We're gonna try and use that one as our throttle now. So we'll bring it back out and we'll try that. Chain pop. We're working it's working a lot better. We're making progress. I want to throw the chain back on and try it one more time. Alright, now that we know that it works, I'm going to try it around the loop here. See if he works on the road too. brakes don't work well. Not at all. All right, so we got two issues with the mini bike absurd cycle thing. One, the chain keeps popping off. That's the big one. Two, the engine shakes real bad. I don't know if it shows in the video, but like it vibrates and shakes so bad because the frame underneath there is just that plate and it's so thin. I don't think it's gonna break anything, but I prefer if it didn't shake so bad, which is probably causing the chain to come off anyways, or at least helping with that. So we're going to adjust a few things and weld up, but that's for a different day. I got the bike running, I got it out, I had a good time, and we got other projects to work on. So the absurd cycle. Yeah, I got some good ideas with this thing. I'm really excited to take this thing out and actually have some fun with it once I get it all completely dialed in. But thank you guys for watching. I always appreciate it. And subscribe, like, it helps me pay for these little projects. And I've got tons of ideas. So the more subscribers I get, the more crazy ideas you guys will see.